Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah.
That Effin' Sports Show. 30 teams down, 2 to go. Wow, what a ride. We've only got one game, well, 2 games, one opponent undecided for the Chargers. So we're going to talk about how we kind of got to some of the decisions. But we've done every team in the NFL except the Chargers and Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a wild road to get here, right? And, you know, it's like these last 2 teams, like pretty much their whole schedules are determined at this point. When we get to the Chiefs last, their entire record will already be determined at that point because we would have picked every other team's game, so there's no games left to pick for the Chiefs. I don't even know exactly where I have the Chiefs finishing. I know I've picked them for a lot of wins along the way. The Chargers have kind of been back and forth with this, you know, win-loss stuff because what are the Chargers really, right? They're a strange team to figure out. They have the talent to be elite, but they don't always play elite. They show flashes of it. They disappoint a lot. So interesting team with the Chargers, and we'll see where they play out after picking, as you said, 15 of their 17 games are already determined.
2 things you need to know as we get into this. Number 1, we do this on the fly. We don't go back. We don't go forward. We see the game. We pick the game. We move on. Because of that, we've done every team in the NFL up until now, except the Chargers and the Chiefs. We have already decided who's going to win or lose all the games for the Chargers, except for the Chiefs. The other thing you need to know that you already know is that the Chargers, great team, number 13 in points for. They finished 10-7 last year, second in division, as we know. Offense, third. Passing offense, they came in third, but their rushing offense, they were 28. With Eckler, makes a little sense, but they're going to have to pick that up. Defense, they were 7th against the pass, 15th against the run. Herbert ends up at QB 11 on your fantasy rosters, but QB 2 as far as yardage, just behind Mahomes, about 500 yards behind Mahomes, 25 touchdowns, which is tied for 8th, only 10 interceptions, which is really, really good. 68.2 completion percentage, also really good. Your running back, Eckler, comes in number 1 on your fantasy rosters, despite not even being a 1,000-yard rusher. Only 915 on the ground. He had 722 through the air, which is good enough for RB2 in reception yards. 10 passes over 20 yards, comes up with 13 rush TDs, 5 receiving TDs for a total of 18, which is interesting because he's not a 1,000-yard rusher, but still has 13 rushing touchdowns. Kind of shows that the Chargers just want to get to the red zone, and then they don't mind handing off the ball.
I mean, yeah, like Eckler, he's always been one of those sneaky red zone threat type of running backs. You don't think of him as a red zone running back because of all the receiving stuff, and he's a little bit smaller, but he's always been pretty good at it. But let's just not forget either, with Eckler, there's a lot of buzz going around that he's not happy with the Chargers. He wanted a contract. He didn't get it. Is he going to be a Charger? How long is he going to be a Charger? Are they going to settle their differences? Definitely something to keep an eye on.
NFL writer, always coming along with us, Adam Hulse, at Adam Hulse Sports on Twitter. They have a fantastic receiving core, but for whatever reason, they can't seem to put it all together. Look, Williams still had 895. Allen had 752. Palmer had 769. Williams and Allen only had 4 touchdowns. Palmer with 3. Eckler does have 5 receiving touchdowns. When you have the number 2 passer in yardage, you expect a few more passing touchdowns. And I think that's why the Chargers are 10-7 and not 13-14 wins into this.
Definitely could be. And I mean, look, like you rattled off the Herbert stats and they were very good, but you know, if you want to know how good Justin Herbert is, that was actually a down year for Justin Herbert, as good as he was, which is pretty amazing to think about. And also with the receiving core, they just drafted another wide receiver too, Quentin Johnston from TCU. So they were already loaded in the passing game and they're even more loaded now.
Clearly, this is the identity of the Chargers. Passing offense, pass through the air. They've got one of the best passers in the game, numbers wise. Now they just need to get the result. An interesting stat that I want to bring up as we get ready to go through this schedule. Williams had 20 catches that went for 20 plus yards, 14.2 a carry. When you're looking at such a pass happy offense, to get a lot of balls downfield like that, that's also accounting for yards after the catch. Allen had 14, Palmer had 12. It really kind of shows that the offense, the passing offense, really is in control every time they step on the field.
Head coach Staley, he's definitely an extremist new school type of coach. He loves going deep downfield. We know he loves going forward on fourth down. He likes taking a lot of risks. Again, that's the new school style of head coaching, but he takes it to a whole nother extreme level.
Last thing I'm going to say before we get into this, and this is maybe the most important thing that I'm going to tell you, these two things, maybe the most important two things I'm going to tell you about the Chargers as we go through the schedule. They lost both games to Kansas City. They split with Denver. They split with Las Vegas. Their other losses were to Jacksonville, Seattle, and San Francisco. And of course, they lost to Jacksonville twice because of the playoffs. Kansas City, Jacksonville, Seattle, San Francisco are the 6 division games. If you want to be a contender in this league, this season, those are games you have to win. You have to beat those teams to get anywhere. You cannot lose those games and expect to go to the Super Bowl.
Right. And while I do agree with you, you can also look at the other end of that as well. And it's that when you look at their list of losses last year, where's the bad loss? You know what I mean? It's just divisional games and elite teams that they lost to. They didn't have one of those shake your head, oh my God, I can't believe they lost that one game.
No, absolutely not. Again, if you want to hit the next level, you've got to beat
I agree.
Those kind of teams. Week 1, I got them beating Miami. Because Miami comes to LA, first of all, and because it's week 1, you have them losing to Miami. Tua will be there, and so that is a big credit for Miami coming into LA.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Tua will 100% be there. This is a very loaded Dolphins roster. When you look at them position by position, they match up with any team in the NFL talent-wise. I'm thinking good things for the Dolphins this year, and they get off to a good start.
Yeah, we talk about not being able to take these games back, doing it game by game at face value. We look at it, we move on. Probably one I would like to take back. Obviously, I won't. Miami's defense is better than the Chargers. Even though Miami has to travel, even though it's week 1, I probably should have given Miami the win, but I didn't. Chargers lose.
Well, and we both like, the whole, teams playing at home against teams traveling across the country. That's a factor both of us use a lot when picking these games. But in week 1, that really doesn't matter that much because you have a lot more time to travel. The travel you can kind of take out of the picture in a sense for week 1.
In week 2, we give the Chargers the win at Tennessee. Tennessee, one of those teams without an identity, as you talked about with the Chargers, but Tennessee really just hurting. They are Derrick Henry right now, and that's really about it. And so we give the Chargers the win in Tennessee for week 2.
Well, they did just add DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know how much of a difference that's really going to make for them. It obviously makes their receivers better, but I don't know how much it's going to impact their record. Not particularly high on the Titans. I went with the Chargers.
Yeah, we could do a whole show on DeAndre Hopkins, and maybe we will, but I don't want to get too far off because we are talking about the Chargers. Week 3, I say the Chargers lose at Minnesota because they're in Minnesota. You went in and gave Chargers the win. It's that crappy Minnesota secondary. They've got to get better to beat teams like the Chargers. You just don't see it.
That was 100% the reason why. Their secondary is absolutely awful. The game's going to be played in the Dome. I'm thinking huge game for Justin Herbert in this one. Not worried about him being on the road against that defense.
Week 4, Las Vegas. They get the win. Las Vegas comes to LA. I'm pretty sure we gave them the home split in this one, but we will find out in just a few minutes, at least for the first time they meet in week 4, because it's in LA, even though it's just a short bus ride, old stomping grounds and all that. Chargers good enough to beat LA in week 4.
I love home teams in division games, especially there's not like an insane gap in talent between the two teams. Love home division games. Took the Chargers.
Week 5, Chargers get an early bye. We'll see how that affects their outcome as the season goes on. I think they'd probably rather get a later bye and get a little rest in the middle of the season. But in week 6, they go to Dallas. Surprisingly enough, I gave Dallas the win. You actually gave Dallas the loss.
I couldn't pick Dallas to win every game. Absolutely love Dallas this year. Full disclosure, I am a Cowboys fan as well, but I wasn't going to pick them to go undefeated. And with the Chargers coming off the bye and playing the Cowboys, the kind of game that I could see the Cowboys losing. So I went with a mini upset, I guess.
Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah, I think Dallas should win that game, which is probably why I picked it that way. Week 7, match number 1 at Kansas City. For me, game Kansas City. It's in Kansas City. Arrowhead, a horrible place to play right now. Mahomes is that good, especially with Kelsey there. I gave Kansas City the win at home.
Yeah, I mean, Arrowhead might be the toughest place to play in this current version of the NFL with the way the Chiefs have been at home and Mahomes has been at home. Add in the fact that he's absolutely dominated this division since he became a starter. I'm going with it.
Week 8, Chicago comes to the Chargers. Chicago going to be an improved team. Chicago's already tough. They can run so many ways. Fields just has to get dialed in as a passer, and maybe he gets that done. But right now in LA, we give the Chargers the win against Chicago.
The Bears will be an improved team this year, adding DJ Moore. I think Justin Fields will develop a little bit as a passer, especially with that addition. But this is a tough ask having to go to LA to play the Chargers. I'll take the Chargers.
Chargers then got to travel about as far as anybody has to travel in the league. They got to travel up to New York. They got to play the Jets. They got to play Aaron Rodgers and this new team. I have said I think this is Rodgers' best team. You're not as high on them, but either way, in week 9 at home, Aaron getting things dialed in, the Chargers take the loss.
At this point of the season, any of that rust and adjustments of joining a new team should be shaken off for Rodgers. You did mention it before. I'm not nearly as high on the Jets this year as it seems like everybody is on the Jets this year. I'm a little lower. If you want to know how low, go back and listen to the Jets episode. But I did pick them to get this one done against the Chargers at home.
We also gave the Chargers a loss against Detroit in LA, and then they take the L in Green Bay. So 3 losses in a row to the Jets, the Lions, and the Packers. Still feeling comfortable about that? I'm not sure I am.
Interesting that that's the way that we went with it, right? We picked these games at face value. So as we were going through the Packers and the Lions schedules, there was reasonings for why we made these picks. But as I'm going through this Chargers schedule right now, I'm kind of scratching my head a little bit as why did I have the Chargers losing at home to the Lions and then also losing to a Packers team that I really don't like at all this year?
Yeah, me too. I'm not sure where we went with that. I'll tell you what. Let's all join hands. We'll all go together. We'll go back and listen to the Detroit episode, and then we'll head over and listen to the Green Bay episode, and we'll figure this out. Go over and check those out.
I mean, I got to listen to them.
Yeah.
I got to listen to them.
We'll see you guys in the comments. Head on over. Week 12, Baltimore comes to the Chargers. And Baltimore, we love Jackson. We don't love much else about the offense. And so we give the Chargers the win, especially with Baltimore coming to LA.
Yeah, I mean, this for me was more of a home team type of game. Both Baltimore and LA will be thinking that they're playoff teams this year for sure, as they were last year. So I probably would have favored Baltimore if the game was at home for them. It's home for the Chargers. I went with Herbert.
LA Chargers going back to New York, New Jersey area. They play in New England for week 13 with the travel. New England's got to pull out a win somewhere. Belichick, good enough to do it. I think it's got to be the travel, but we gave LA the loss.
Yeah, definitely travel has something to do with it. Also, let's not forget, New England is a very good home team as well. And when you look at New England's roster, for me, there's really not a whole lot of talent and a lot to like about their roster, but this is the Belichick way, right? It's not about the flashy names and the super talent. It's about the scheme. It's about the design. It's about doing your job right. If everybody does their part, we're going to be okay. And they've been a pretty bad team the last 2 years as well when you look at the roster, but their record have really not been as bad as the team is. It's what Belichick does. This is the kind of game that he can win at home.
You got to like the New England defense. New England defense is pretty stout. And when you're going against a one-dimensional team like the Chargers, I mean, honestly, if you can stop the pass based on the stats that we went over at the beginning of the show, if you could stop the pass, you got a very good chance of beating the Chargers. And that's something New England typically been pretty decent at doing.
Later in the season, too, it might be really cold up in Foxborough. That could definitely play a factor.
100%. I do remember that being a factor as well. Another one, go check out the New England episode, see how we got there. We already talked about Denver just an episode ago. We gave the Chargers the win as Denver comes to LA. We give them the split, and then the Chargers go to Las Vegas. I gave the Chargers the win in Las Vegas. You gave the Chargers the loss.
Yeah, I mean, it might be the phrase that, I've used the most during this entire series of all 32 games, and it's that home split in divisional series. Pick another one.
Las Vegas, 3 of the last 4 are against divisional opponents. Denver, 3 of the last 5 are against divisional opponents. The Chargers, 4 of the last 5 are against divisional opponents. Division games already mean something. Divisional games already can go either way, and the Chargers looking uphill at the end of the season for the last 5. They get their shot at Buffalo. Buffalo comes to LA. They don't have to go to New York this time. Buffalo comes to LA. For some reason, I gave the Chargers the win against Buffalo. You, more appropriately so, gave them the loss. But I mean, Buffalo can't win every game. Upsets happen. It's in LA. Buffalo is the better team, but the Chargers have pulled out some wins. I gave Chargers the win. You gave Buffalo the loss. There it is.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a shocking win for the Chargers Chargers by any means. If the game was in Buffalo, I'd absolutely love the Bills, but I just think that the Bills are a class better than the Chargers. So even having to go all the way across the country on the road, I think the Bills will still get it done, especially with it being late in the season and the games being more important. It could matter a lot for the Bills for where they'll be seated in the AFC playoff picture. It's going to be an important game for both teams. I'll go with the Bills.
As of right now, week 17 at Denver. Again, those home splits. We gave the Chargers the loss. Denver being much improved this year, we believe, with Sean Payton. So they lose in Denver in week 17. And then it comes down to week 18. Going to last game of the season, I've got the Chargers at 8 wins. You've got them at 7. So the best I can do for you is 8. The best I can do for me is 9. They went 10 last year. So we're already got them lower. Schedule having a lot to do with that. Travel having something to do with that. Last game against Kansas City.
I don't think that this game is going to matter for the Chargers. 8 wins is definitely not going to be enough to get into the playoffs in the AFC. So if I'm right with them having 7 wins at this point, I think they will already be eliminated. I don't think the game will matter for the Chargers. It definitely could still matter for the Chiefs in terms of, trying to get that number 1 seed in the first round bye. So I'm taking the Chiefs.
Adam Hulse, happy with his 7 wins, 7-9, down from 10-7. I really want to pull the upset here. I want to pull the home split. I want to say that the Chargers can pull this off. You brought up the fact that this could matter for Kansas City as far as like a bye week game, finishing first or second. We're not looking at that right now. So this is not in front of me. I don't know how important this game is going to be for Kansas City as terms of record. I don't know if they're going to be playing for first or second. And I have to make a decision here strictly based off the game. LA versus Kansas City in LA. I got to give the Chargers the loss as well. It only gives them 8 wins. It puts them at 8-9.
Man, that was a lot of buildup. I really thought you were going to do it.
I really was. If it wasn't for the fact, this could be the difference between 1 and 2. This could be the difference between the bye week or not getting the bye week. We're going to talk about Kansas City next, and you're going to see how I really feel about Kansas City. I don't think Kansas City is as good as they were last year. What does that mean? We'll find out in the next episode. Chargers going down from 10 wins to somewhere around 8 or 7. Come find out what that means for this division. We've got the last game, the last team in the entire NFL coming up next with Kansas City. We've done every single one. We know already what games Kansas City is going to win or lose, but we don't know what the record is because we haven't got there yet. Come count it up with us. Who is us? That's the Adam Hulse at Adam Hulse Sports, NFL writer at sportskita.com. I'm Chris Fox, that Effin' Sports Show. Listen anywhere you want to. Use keyword EFIN. You can even throw the video up on YouTube in the background while you're working all day. That Effin' Sports Show, last game of the season. I'm on pins and needles. Come find out how it all finishes out. We'll see you guys there. Have a great one.
Just tell me that I can and show you things that you